How does a filthy mystic with wild eyes and a reputation for madness become the most trusted advisor to the most powerful family in Russia? Russia, at the turn of the 20th century, was a nation boiling beneath a frozen surface. The streets of St. Petersburg reeked of hunger and unrest. Meanwhile, inside the lavish palaces, the Romanov family, emperors by divine right, lived in illusion. And it was precisely within that illusion that a dark figure emerged. A man unlike any other. A man feared, hated, adored, and possibly even something more. His name was Grigory Yefimovich Rasputin. Born in a small Siberian village named Pokrovskoye, he was the child of illiterate peasants, baptized into a world of snow, superstition, and survival. No one, not even his own parents, could have imagined that this boy, dirty, barefoot, prone to disturbing visions, would one day walk through the gilded halls of the Tsar's palace, whispering into the ears of royalty. But Rasputin's story is not about wealth or power in the traditional sense. It's about influence, a psychological grip that tightened around the heart of a crumbling empire. And his tools, not swords nor politics, but something far more ancient and far more dangerous: mysticism, fear, and suggestion. As a young man, Rasputin claimed to see visions of the Virgin Mary. Locals said he had the sight, others called him cursed. But Rasputin had something few men possess: an aura. He was magnetic, otherworldly. Women fell into a trance at his gaze. Men spoke of his unbreakable stare, and priests whispered about his heresy. He soon joined a wandering sect that believed sin brought you closer to God. The more you sinned, the deeper your repentance, and the closer you came to the divine. This dangerous idea became Rasputin's first tool of manipulation: oral inversion. In a society drowning in religious guilt, Rasputin turned sin into salvation. He seduced followers not with sermons, but with the promise of redemption through the very acts they feared. This spiritual blackmail opened doors. The whispers of a holy man who healed souls, and perhaps even bodies, spread to the elite. And the Romanovs? They were desperate for a miracle. What would you give to save your only son from death? For Tsarina Alexandra, the answer was everything, including the very soul of her empire. Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia, ruled with a calm hand but a blind eye. Detached from his people, he clung to tradition while the world burned around him. But his true weakness was not political, it was personal. His son, Alexei, heir to the throne, suffered from hemophilia, a rare disease where even a bruise could mean death, and no doctor could help. Enter Rasputin. In 1905, the mystic was introduced to the royal family through mutual noblewomen who believed in his spiritual powers. The Tsarina was skeptical until she saw it with her own eyes. During one of Alexei's near-fatal hemorrhages, Rasputin simply prayed, and the bleeding stopped. Medical coincidence? Placebo? Or something more sinister? From that day forward, Alexandra was convinced. Rasputin was sent by God. It didn't matter that he smelled like sweat and old vodka. It didn't matter that he groped noblewomen or that he had no theological training. Rasputin had done the impossible. And to a mother drowning in fear, he was a lifeline, one she would never let go of. This is where Rasputin's psychological hold truly began. He crafted an identity not as a man, but as a divine messenger. His eyes, intense, unblinking, seemed to pierce the soul. He spoke in riddles, never giving direct answers, always provoking more questions. Mystery became his shield, and fear, his sword. Behind closed doors, Rasputin whispered. He told Alexandra what she wanted to hear, that her son would live, that God favored her rule, and that he alone held the key to salvation. Over time, his influence grew. He began advising on court appointments. Ministers were fired at his command. Even war strategy was shaped by his hand. But how? How did this man, uneducated and unwashed, command such obedience from the Tsarina of Russia? Because he didn't appeal to the mind. He controlled the heart. Through emotional manipulation, spiritual dependency, and hypnotic presence, Rasputin became not just a healer, but a puppet master. He never needed to shout. One look, one murmur, and the will of others bent like reeds in the wind. What was Rasputin's true power? Some historians argue he was a master hypnotist. Others believe he had a natural gift, an intuitive understanding of how to control people through subtle cues. He would often stare into someone's eyes for several seconds before speaking, his voice slow, deliberate, rhythmic. This wasn't mere eccentricity, it was calculated trance induction. His followers described being wrapped in a fog when he spoke. He rarely gave commands directly. Instead, he suggested outcomes, hinting at the divine, planting mental seeds that grew into unquestionable beliefs. This is the essence of suggestive hypnosis, the power to guide thoughts without resistance. But Rasputin didn't just hypnotize individuals. He hypnotized a nation. Rumors about him were both terrifying and thrilling. He was called a demon, prophet, a sex addict, a saint. The contradiction was part of the magic. No one knew the truth, and that uncertainty created a vacuum, a space where legends grew and reason died. Even those who hated him couldn't stop talking about him, and every whisper, every scandal made him more powerful. This is the dark psychology of infamy as influence. In a world obsessed with secrets, Rasputin became the most intriguing secret of all. Meanwhile, his private life was a theater of contradiction. He preached humility but indulged in wine and flesh. He claimed divine visions while blackmailing nobles. Yet no matter how many scandals arose, no matter how many assassination attempts were made, he survived. And each time he did, the myth only grew stronger. They poisoned him, shot him, beat him, and he lived. To the peasants, he was a martyr. To the church, a heretic. To the court, a liability. To the Tsarina, he was God's voice on earth. And that's when the empire began to fall. The same man who once healed the empire's future now threatened its very survival. By 1916, Russia was unraveling. The First World War had bled the country dry, and whispers of revolution echoed in every street. Food was scarce. Soldiers were deserting. Trust in the monarchy was at an all-time low. And still, behind the walls of the Winter Palace, Rasputin's influence remained untouched. He was now seen as a symbol, not just of mysticism, but of corruption. The nobility blamed him for the empire's failures. Ministers warned that as long as Rasputin whispered in the Tsarina's ear, Russia would never heal. Newspapers called him the Mad Monk and accused him of everything from espionage to orgies. Some of it was true, much of it wasn't. But perception is more powerful than truth. The Tsarina dismissed all criticism. To her, Rasputin was still the savior of her son, and she, in turn, convinced the Tsar to trust him. One by one, generals and advisors were replaced with Rasputin's hand-picked loyalists. The government became a puppet show, with Rasputin pulling strings behind the velvet curtain. The fear was no longer just about mysticism, it was political. Rasputin had become the shadow emperor, but no shadow survives forever. The more power he gained, the more enemies he made. Plots brewed in secret chambers, knives were sharpened, and in the depths of Russian nobility, a decision was made. Rasputin had to die. The plan was grotesquely theatrical. A group of aristocrats, led by Prince Felix Yusupov, invited Rasputin to a late-night gathering under the pretense of friendship. They served him cakes and wine laced with cyanide. Rasputin ate and drank, smiling the whole time. Nothing happened. Panicked, Yusupov retrieved a revolver and shot Rasputin in the chest. The monk collapsed, but when they checked his body minutes later, he opened his eyes. He lunged at them, tried to escape. They shot him again, beat him, tied him up. Finally, they dumped his body in the frozen river Neva. Even in death, he terrified them. His body was later found with water in the lungs, suggesting he was still alive when he hit the water. Whether true or myth, the symbolism was undeniable. Rasputin wouldn't die quietly. Was Rasputin a prophet, or the first influencer of the modern age? Beyond the horror, beyond the mysticism, lies something even more fascinating: the psychological structure of Rasputin's control. How did a man with no formal education manipulate some of the most intelligent, powerful individuals of his time? The answer is found in what psychologists now call dark triad traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Narcissism. Rasputin believed he was chosen by God. This gave him an unshakable confidence that people interpreted as divine certainty. He never second-guessed himself. He didn't plead or explain, he proclaimed. Machiavellianism. Rasputin was a master strategist. He knew how to play factions against each other. He rarely attacked outright. Instead, he planted ideas, sowed doubt, and let others destroy themselves. Psychopathy. His detachment from social norms, his disregard for consequences, and his ability to charm and terrify in equal measure. These were signs of emotional manipulation at its highest level. But Rasputin also leveraged cognitive dissonance. He would commit acts so contradictory that people's minds bent trying to rationalize them. He could bless a child in the morning and visit a brothel by night. Rather than seeing him as a hypocrite, his followers saw him as beyond comprehension. The contradiction became proof of holiness. This is the same psychology used by cult leaders and manipulators today. The key is not consistency, it's awe. If people believe you have access to a truth they don't understand, they will follow, no matter how insane it becomes. And Rasputin, filthy and divine, embodied that perfectly. Even after his death, his legend lived on. For some, he was a martyr, for others, a devil. But no one could ignore him. His story became a warning and a prophecy. Are we still being hypnotized, just by different names? Rasputin died in 1916. Just 1 year later, the Russian Revolution exploded. The Romanov family was executed. The monarchy collapsed. A new world was born, colder, harsher, and forever changed. But Rasputin's ghost never left. His life became a metaphor for blind faith, for the dangers of charisma, and for the terrible cost of psychological control. He was the embodiment of how fear and hope, when tangled, can make monsters out of men and gods out of manipulators. In the digital age, we may scoff at mystics and prophets. But are we really so different? We still follow those who speak with unshakable confidence. We're still drawn to those who promise salvation, whether spiritual, financial, or political. We still mistake charisma for truth and certainty for wisdom. The same techniques Rasputin used, emotional exploitation, suggestion, fear, contradiction, are now wielded by influencers, CEOs, cult leaders, and demagogues. So ask yourself, who is whispering in your ear today? Who are you giving your faith to? Without question, Rasputin's story is not just history, it's a mirror. And when you stare into it long enough, you might not like what you see. Grigory Rasputin was not a genius. He was not divine. But he understood the fragile architecture of the human mind, how to twist guilt into worship, how to exploit pain for power, and how to make fear feel like faith. His life was a dark sermon on the danger of surrendering critical thought in exchange for certainty. And though he's gone, the forces he embodied are very much alive. So the next time someone promises to heal you, guide you, or save you, ask yourself, are they Rasputin in disguise? Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also, activate the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming stories. See you in the next video.